All right. Good morning, everyone, and happy first day of November. Uh, we always have the best guest when our one of our speakers has to cancel. So Dr. Cuthbertson had to cancel yesterday. So Miss Connie has been so gracious enough. She's going to try to take as much of the hour as possible. Hopefully, you guys have lots of questions. But Miss Connie was introduced to me by one of our AgriSafe staff, Miss Nisha. And Miss Connie is, make sure I get this right, the founder of MFH Services for You. Is that right, Connie? Whoops.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So she is a mental health certified peer support specialist. So she's going to go ahead and she doesn't have a PowerPoint this morning. She's going to give us her story, her background, and then all of her resources. And she's going to put those resource links in the chat once she's finished. And then we will also go ahead and send that out in the bulk email along with the YouTube link to our video so that you guys can always have that on hand or forward to your colleagues or other organizations. So we are going to let Ms. Connie go ahead and take it away today. Thank you, Connie.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to allow me to come into your space. A little bit about me. I am a 20-year retired Air Force veteran. And with November being Veterans Appreciation Month, if there are any veteran out there, let me first say thank you for your service and standing along with me in being a part of the greatest fighting machine known to the world. I am a fourth generation farmer. I tell people that I'm an emerging farmer. After my 20 years in the Air Force, I spent 20 years as a chef and a culinary instructor. So I've been on both sides of the fence and have had the wonderful opportunity to be able to change culinary purveyors and help the world gain other culinary professionals. I have done years and years of philanthropic work. One of the organizations, Women Veterans Social Justice Network, which I am the vice president of, we won the Medal of Honor for community service because we have found that we are one of the fastest growing populations that retire or leave the military. So there are a lot of different things that we do to help women veteran transition. So in doing that, I decided, like a lot of veterans do, go back to my roots. We leave the small town and join the military, and then when we retire, we go back to the small town. So in doing so, I found that there was a big gap in the need for mental wellness professionals and mental wellness support. Georgia has 159 counties, and a lot of them are very rural with limited access to Wi-Fi and mental wellness support and health supports in general. So I knew that this was something that, again, I was passionate about. Also, that there was a need. I am from a lot of different minority groups. I'm a woman, I'm military, and I'm Black. So that changes and add to the complexity of my needs, not to mention just being in rural Georgia tends to add a lot to those things. So that's how a little bit about me. After COVID hit and shut down my catering company, I realized that the itch that I had was really to go back into farming. I am fourth generation, but I am also the first generation to actually own the land that I am developing into a greenhouse enterprise. So those things come with a lot of pressure. And being able to recognize those things, in myself, I realized that I had to go back and find some resources and share them with my peers. I don't know how many of you have, is there a lot of people from Georgia in the audience? If you could just give me a thumbs up, if you're Southern grown or in a rural area, then you can probably understand some of the things that I am talking about. Did I miss the thumbs up? Anyway, thank you, Christy. It makes a big difference in how we conduct ourselves and what we do. So again, after COVID shut down, Manna from Heaven Catering Company, I decided to go and look for land. And that was a very daunting process to be able to go and figure those things out and the resources that were available. And in doing that for 3 years, I realized that my stress level was really high and I needed to do something about it. Being from two groups, one being culinary arts, who has a very high suicide rate as well, and then changing over into farming, which again comes with those same risks. I realized that there was a gap and a need to be able to go out and talk to people about wellness and mental wellness. And if you know anything about military, we are very, very pro-family, but you have to be a part of our clique in order for a lot of what you say to get through to us. So I knew that it was going to be important for me as an African American woman and a farmer to be able to go in the trenches and speak on wellness and talk about how it affected me and the stresses and what goes along with it. Again, I'm an emerging farmer. So I bought 53 acres of land. I'm in the process of planning my farm, looking at crops, finding mentors, finding funding resources. All of those come with large stressors. And in the last year, climate change, weather, and Mother Nature has ruined a lot of crops for a lot of farmers here in Georgia. And that weighed heavily on me to be able to get out and talk about those things and be a part of the solution, so to speak. So which led me to becoming a part of this wonderful group as a part of the diversity and inclusion, because I knew that once I joined AgriSafe, excuse me, as a part of their advisory committee, that I could make a difference nationwide and to be able to share who I am, what I stand for, and how I can help others navigate being a farmer. Now, that's a little bit about me. In a nutshell, my reason for becoming a certified peer support specialist, because I know all of you have heard the commercials that talk a lot about veterans going into farming. And again, those are two wonderful professions, but they come with a lot of stress. And thus military folks are used to completing the mission at all costs. And sometimes in farming, that cost can be very high. Now, I am here at your disposal to ask me questions about what it looks like for me in the mental health sphere, the things that we're doing on this side to help get into the community, offer support, and have candid conversations about mental wellness and what that looks like as a farmer, as a veteran, as a woman of color. And I did not say it, but I am a disabled vet. So that limits me in some of the things that I can actually do, some of the equipment that I can do that will make my job easier. So trying to figure out those pieces and understanding just how important they are for what I need to do to be a success. Anybody want to take the plunge and ask me any questions about what we do and how we do it?
So, Connie, in the chat, Caleb says, how do you balance regenerating your energy with doing the hard work of planning and starting your farm work? He says, I'm in the planning phases now too, and always feel guilty when I take a break.
Caleb, that is a question that I always put at the very beginning. And for me, it is planning. Um, Before my feet hit the floor in the morning, I find 5 things that I'm grateful for. And then after I do that, I take the time to list the things that I need to accomplish during the day. And then once I write the complete list down, I actually take a moment and figure out what's connected, what will take the least amount of my time. And then I also give myself permission to take a break, to feed back into myself and pour back into myself. Again, I'm military. So we are used to 24/7. And I had to take the time to tell my inner soldier to stand down, that it's okay to rest, to be able to get past that guilty feeling of not being able to be everything for everybody all the time. And just check in and be present with yourself. Because if you work from 6 in the morning until 10 at night and you're up till 12 planning and doing business stuff, that doesn't leave you a lot of time to rest and rejuvenate. And those things create a center for accidents and being careless. And again, your mental well-being affects your physical well-being. And a lot of times those go hand in hand. And if you're like me, with physical limitations, I have rods and screws in my back from a service-connected accident. So there's not a lot of things that I can do without being reminded that those things are there. And then I'm 60. And when you're 60, the body does not allow you some of the flexibility that it used to do when you are 20 or 25. So Caleb, take a moment for yourself. And once you start doing that, you will realize that you can do more and you don't have to do them in 24 hours.
Very true. I think a lot of us on this call have that same problem of just always trying to be everything to everyone and just never taking that downtime. We have another question, which I almost had, my heart just went a little crazy because this gentleman's name is Greg Porrell and my husband's name is Greg Portell. And I thought, how in the world did he get on this call? So Greg asked, what was the process to become a certified peer support specialist? We are hoping to develop this type of network in Massachusetts ag community.
I was actually at a women's wellness center every second Saturday here in McDonough, Georgia. We do a wellness Saturday for not only women veterans, but for women, period. And we had the trainer come in and train us on wellness and having a plan to be able to help you survive. Because many of you probably know veterans who have actually had some challenges physically and mentally, and sometimes they are hard to overcome without a plan in place that will allow you to have an escape route. Because sometimes when things hit and you don't have a clear plan as to how to navigate them, you get caught up in reacting and not doing what you know works for you. During the training, they offered us to come be a part of their class and go through the 2-week training. I went because, again, I had a specific goal in mind, and that was to change the face of what wellness looks like as a chef and as a farmer. And I know a lot of people were surprised that culinary arts have such a high rate of suicide, but not only suicide, but we have an extremely high rate of addiction. Um, we work long hours. If you work in the dinner shift, you're usually there from 3 until closing. Sometimes it's 11, 12 o'clock at night. And when you get off, most of the time, the only things that are open are bars. So we're still coming down from doing dinner service, and the good feelings are still there, and we're trying to de-stress. So we go to the bar and we sit up and have a drink. And doing that over and over again leads to the addiction of being in that high stress space. Same thing with the farmer. When we finish, everybody most of the time has gone to bed or doing something else. So we spend that time looking at the things that did not work out, or the equipment that broke, or Mother Nature came in. We had a farmer in Albany that had over 50 acres of bell peppers, and the storm came in and wiped him out. Some of them, most of the time, that's their whole life in that field. So when Mother Nature, which you cannot control, comes in and snatches that, that's a lot of pressure. And that is what changes the mental well-being. So again, and I'm sorry, I probably hadn't got to the point of answering your question, how did I get certified? It was going through a week-long class, 8 hours a day, and then we tested. And being able to offer that as an outlet, not only in culinary arts, but in agriculture, I know is going to make a difference. Because again, how many of you have walked into a room and you instantly look for someone that looks like you, or someone that smiles and make you feel like you're not alone? And I want to be that person for people to identify and to be able to share. Mental wellness is a choice. So again, I dedicated the week-long time and the studying to become certified. And now I'm volunteering at the VA in an all-women space to be able to talk peer-to-peer support specialists. And I'm moving down south and actually looking at getting into the agricultural space where women are, where veterans are, to talk about it's okay to say I'm tired. It's okay to become present in where you are and what you're doing, and to build that plan that allows for and a safe outlet for what you're doing.
Honey, I just heard you say that you volunteer at the VA, and our next question was, how are you connected to those needing the peer support? Is volunteering how you get in touch with them, or are they starting to come to you?
It's through volunteering, through other organizations. Many of you, well, in Georgia and in the Atlanta area, we have what's called Veterans Court. And Veteran Court specifically relates to the veterans who have gotten into trouble with the law. And a lot of times it's through substance abuse, it's through physical abuse, and all of that can be directly traced back to our service and not handling the things that we need to handle to become well. So they don't excuse the offense, but they work to mitigate the source of the problem. So I make sure that I'm known out there for being able to work with people, to go and talk to people, to be the face that looks like something that they respond to in a good way.
David, it has our next question. He says, as a general statement, would you say that ex-military are more private about what they did and are doing, just as a general rule?
In general, initially, that is how we start. I've been retired from the military 20 years. So back during that time frame, we did not talk about mental wellness. If you said that you needed to go talk to somebody about your mental wellness, that was a sure way to have you red flagged. So you weren't going to get promoted, and then you were not going to be retained. So those things you bury. And that is a learned behavior that we are trying to unlearn. So when I go and speak to other veterans who are looking at agriculture as a transitioning career, we have those frank talks about what it looks like when you planted 10 acres and nothing comes up. Or someone made a promise to you that they would buy what you grow. And when you harvest and you go to them, they forgot about their verbal agreement to you. So those unnecessary stresses, we have to work out a plan. So I talk about getting a contract for who you're going to sell to. Back in the old days, a handshake was good, but when you are doing business, you've got to be about business. And that is making sure that before you put it in the ground, you have someone that is interested in what you want to grow and sell. Because it's just like planting it and hoping that it grow. Once it grow, you're hoping someone will buy it and that you can recoup your money. But what happens if it doesn't go out that way?
That's right. We have lots of questions. And I just want to say to our audience, like, I am so friggin' proud of you this morning. Like, you are interactive beyond any meeting we've ever had.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. And a lot of those questions are questions that farmers hear in their head, but they don't know how to articulate it or to find a space to articulate it. To tell you guys about my enterprise that I'm doing, my 52 acres of land has 31 acres that are cleared. I've owned it since February, and it has been torment for me not to have something in the ground. But I keep going back and saying, you got to plan your work and work your plan. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. You've got to plan it so that the stressors are minimal. But again, you can't control Mother Nature. You can't control how life be lifing. I bought it in February. In July, someone ran a stop sign and totaled my Yukon. And if you know anything about Yukon, it is a tank. and they hit me so hard that it peeled the driver's side quarter panel back. So now in my head, I've got to readjust and I've got to pivot because the injuries that I sustained are going to keep me from doing some of the things that I wanted to do on my property. Is that a stressor? Oh, unbelievably so. But true to the military, you have plan A, you have plan B, and then you improvise. So now I'm in the improvising stage, but also in the planning to keep stress as a minimal.
Honey, Melinda wants to know, can you share your thoughts and how you address lack of access to mental health professionals trained to meet the needs of the rural veterans, especially? Do you need me to say that again? It was a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, good. So can you share your thoughts on how do you address the lack of access to mental health professionals that are trained to meet the needs of the rural veterans?
First, we have to have people admit that there is a problem, that there is no access. We found that out when COVID hit and the kids couldn't go to school. And the only Wi-Fi they had in the house was mama's cell phone, and she had 5 kids, and everybody couldn't be on Wi-Fi at the same time. So until we start handling that by making Wi-Fi accessible to all places in the United States, then we can start making accessibility through telehealth to some of the farmers who are out in the boonies. And if you've been to Georgia, it takes one wrong turn and you are lost for 3 days with no Wi-Fi signal and hoping your gas will last. And when I'm in the space with other mental wellness professionals, I bring up those things. That's, we talk about telehealth, but you've got to go where they are, whether it's spending a day and going down to the Ace Hardware store where they are gathered in there talking about what's happening, or if it's the state of the county breakfasts and being in those spaces, going to the auction where they're auctioning off the cattle and the livestock, and making other professionals aware of the need. And also making sure that there is someone that looks like you in that space. Inclusion makes a difference, because for me, I speak to women veteran, and when I go in, I say, I've had therapy and I'm happy about it. But if they don't never see anyone that they know that looks like them to say this is okay to do it and be here and ask about it, it becomes a thing that they talk about under the table. We've got to make it okay to not be okay, and to find someone you trust. And that means inclusion at all levels, in all spaces.
For anybody who hasn't opened up the chat, Jessica put a link in the chat to the CPRSS process in Oklahoma. If you guys want to take a look at that, we're going to thank you, Jessica, for doing that. Robert wants to ask, do people in the ag business have more openness to peer support compared to licensed mental professionals? And if so, what makes people more open to peer support?
It's if you've ever been around a veteran or walked into a space where we were, you automatically know that we were military. If it's the yes or no, ma'am, if it is the way we stand, if it is how we react when the national anthem is played, people look for that. And farmers have that same telltale sign. In the male space, They usually have on overalls or a baseball cap from either John Deere or International or something that directly relates to the agriculture industry. For women, not so much, unless we have something that says, I play in the dirt. And if that is not there, then most of the time we blend in, because unfortunately, the agriculture community, just like in the culinary arts community, they're not always as welcoming for women, and the military as well. So you learn to blend in without blending in. You're there to glean the information and get what you can, but most of the time it is stand back because I'm not welcomed in those spaces. So again, inclusion is key to being able to get to where you need to get to. I started right when COVID hit looking for property, and I was very specific about what I wanted. If anybody is familiar with Hyundai coming to Georgia, they are taking over on I-16 from exit 104. Every other exit will have a Hyundai plant. So what used to be agriculture is changing. Can we blend in with it? Yes. But how we do that is going to be detrimental to our business. For me, I want the greenhouses, but I also know that as a culinary instructor, I've got to be able to get into the school system and work with the students, which is in turn going to affect the agricultural families, and being able to talk about those things and bring those things to play, because it's ever changing.
Honey, I guarantee you, once this meeting is over, someone's going to go make a t-shirt that says I play in dirt.
That's part of Manna from Heaven services too. We do cute clothes that say we are women veteran. And now that I'm going into the agriculture space, I am very much, if you can't see, I've got on camouflage earrings, I've got on camo everything. That says to the world that I'm military, and I need to be able to bring that space into the agricultural space.
Awesome. Heather has a question. She says, so she is the case manager and therapist from New York who is working on helping farmers access and get equipment to support them as hard as they work hard to support us. Have you found any programs or services that may help with adapting equipment based on physical needs?
Yes, there are. I work with a gentleman from UGA. His name is Justin Miller. And it's a part of the agribility piece. And they highlight folks with disabilities and processes and needs, because a lot of times my disabilities aren't obvious to the naked eye. Unless you heard me get up, which means that you would hear me moan before I stood up. And once I stood up, you would hear the bones creaking and popping, and you would know that the slowness in what I'm moving with is a part of what is my disabilities. So there are things that will afford opportunity and help. And I will list, it'll be part of the list that I will give at the end of this. But start with your universities, because they want to help farmers succeed. But even with that, we have got to be realistic about the possibilities. For me, when I started, I just knew the USDA was going to help me get all of the things that I needed. And then I found out I had to be farming for 3 years. I can work toward that, but to know that up front helps my stress level, because then I'm not going through changes because I can't apply for certain grants or get certain boundaries. And be frank, there are a lot of groups of people that don't get the same support. You have to find your tribe. You have to be able to know what you're looking for, ask for it, and ask for it in the right spaces and places. Knowledge, mentorship is a part of that, because it's no longer what you know. It has always been who you know.
Crystal says, I am so enjoying your enthusiasm. I noticed you were talking about a lot of women's focus, which she loves. But is this transferring over to men, youth, family, and agriculture in your area? Are you finding these groups are receptive to mental health help as you are?
No, they are not, because we are so steeped in tradition that you don't talk about it. In the Black community, oh, you have a mental health problem? We don't talk about that in mixed company. We don't talk about that at the dinner table. That's the crazy aunt that sleeps in the back room that you don't let go out the front door by herself because of her mental challenges. But it is working to do the paradigm shift, because until we break up what mental wellness looks like and how we have to work daily to achieve it, it's always going to be something that you don't talk about until you're at the funeral of a farmer who committed suicide and left his family because he didn't see a way out. It is constantly showing up and showing up for the cause and allowing them to see. I get it. I get the support, and I'm still good people. So we have to vote with our feet and say it and say it again and say it again and again. And it may not click in that first time, but then in the still of the night, when they're contemplating doing something harmful, they have 1 second of lucidity and they'll remember, oh, Connie went and got help and she all right. I don't have half of the stress she has. So let me go look for that number that she talked about and go make a phone call.
Yes, yes. Heather says the support groups sound very empowering and supportive. Is that open to all states?
Yes. The military has done this wonderful thing where they are now trying to include all levels of faith. Because if you are not on a base or in direct contact with military chaplains, the pastors, a lot of times, are the first line of defense. So we are working to bring clergy and law enforcement and chaplains in to be able to speak about those things and be able to recognize. I live in Henry County, one of the fastest growing counties in the suburbs of Atlanta. When the sheriff ran, I had catered his campaign breakfast. And as he was thanking me, I said to him, so what's your stance on veterans and mental wellness? And he stopped and looked. And he said, what does that mean? I said, if you don't understand us and what we bring to the table and how your law enforcement responds to us, it is going to be a problem. And I saw him again last week when I was speaking, and he squeezed my hand and he said, I now understand. Because until the rural sheriffs know what to look for when they stop a farmer that's been drinking. Or if the wife calls and says he's in the barn with the gun, he's been up all night. If they don't understand how to respond to that, the situation can go south really quickly. And for a combat trained veteran with a farm that has lost everything and the demons are coming back, we've got to figure out how to make sure that everybody in the whole community is aware. Because the pastor in the church, as he's standing at the door, and I'm from a real small town in Georgia, where at the end of service, the pastor is at the door shaking everybody's hand at the end of service. And if he's not aware of what that looks like emotionally, he could lose a family behind it. So making them aware of what's going on. And it's not just active duty military, it's our Guard and Reserves. Because in the last 10 years, the Guard and Reserves have been used just as much as active duty. And there are some that are already being called up. And when they come back, they go back to being a civilian. They go back to the farm. And we've got to find a way to make sure that they know that we see them. And if you see something, say something.
We have a couple comments in the chat. I think we all agree, either Cassie or Casey, this is going back to what you said, written word is important. That kind of hit me too. I was like, nobody truly writes anything anymore. And when you do receive something that is written, like it affects you so much more than an email that comes across, you know. Jake says, stigma surrounding mental health care is slowly improving, but thanks for pointing out the extreme red flag of this in the military.
Yes, military, culinary arts, any profession where we are isolated, it becomes an issue. And there's a thing, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. And that means, again, just being able to go into a class or speaking and saying, wellness is wellness. And it starts in the mind and it trickles down to your physical and your financial. And they are not exclusive of each other. They are co-joined, and you can't get rid of one without getting rid of the other.
Yes. Crystal pointed out something in the chat that I think we need to say again, because like she said, wow, so powerful. You said we don't talk about mental health until we go to the funeral.
Yes.
I mean, boom.
And that it is so easy to put the mask on when you're in front of people, because we've all become Academy Award-winning actors and actresses that nobody ever sees. You've got acres and acres of land, but it does not dawn on people that you got to keep it. I got my tax bill the other day, and I was already thinking, I haven't planted a seed, but I've got to pay these taxes on this land. And if there are not resources to help people or just help them figure out their next step, it is going to be, again, one of those things. And what's funny about agricultural suicide as versus to military suicide, military suicide is usually pretty public, but on the agriculture side, it can look like an accident. And then after it happens, people do hindsight and say, oh, he was acting kind of strange. Every time I called him, he wouldn't answer the phone. But most farmers are already caught up in their own lives until they miss it. And survivor's guilt is real. So being able to, if we couldn't stop the suicide, we got to help the family.
I
And
agree. What was the program that you went through for your mental health peer support?
it's an organization here in Georgia, and I know I'm going to butcher it, so I'll look for the name of it and put it in there in the chat and make sure it goes out with the other information of what we do or what I talked about. But there are programs all over.
I was going to ask that. I didn't know if that program was specific to Georgia or if it's a
It is.
nationwide.
It is specific to Georgia, but the funding that they use is a federal fund. And SAMHSA and a couple of other federal organizations are always giving grants to talk, to get out in the spaces. One of the ones that we're looking at is speaking to young people about agriculture and the stresses of agriculture. Because if you grew up in farming like I did, you have heard the conversations. You've understood what it does to you mentally and physically. Because I think I was 7, getting up at 5:30 to be in the field by 6:30 and working until dark and then coming home, and what that did to my psychological state of being mad and saying, I don't know why I have to work out here in this field. Let everybody else go do this. I should be able to play. But that type of help was needed in order for the farm to succeed. So again, in those rural spaces, being able to not only talk to the parents, but give the kids an outlet. Because they may not be at the dinner table when mom and dad are talking about, I've hocked everything that I have to pay for this crop, and now the windstorm has come in and it's rained, or we had a frost in March and it's usually gone by February, and I still owe on the seeds.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Cassie wants to know, is there a way for the USDA to help people set up the plans that you highlighted as important?
There are, and they do have programs that will assist with that, but the SBA, that's their job, is to be able to talk business. Because when we stop thinking about farming as a hobby and learn how to treat it as a business, it is going to change how we talk about it. I've got a crop plan. I've got a diagram of how much of my 52 I'll start with, what I'll grow, how I'm going to keep it organic, where I'm going to buy my supplies from, where are my possible outlets for selling. And that takes time. And for a farmer, planning like that is one of the hardest things to do, because our job is to grow. And if we're not growing, to us, it feels like we're not doing anything. So again, talk to your local SBA. There are programs where they talk business plans, how you do them, understanding them, what it looks like for you, and how important it is to have the vision, the mission, and the plan all together, and then be fluid, because it changes like the sun go up and go down. In Georgia, we had 82 degrees yesterday. This morning, it was 39. I think now it may be 45. So just like that changed, so will everything else.
You may have just answered this second question from her when you stated the State Department of Ag. She said, is there a course offered for farmers to write the grants that they may need for farm industry? Because
Um,
we all know how hard grants are to understand and write.
there are high level courses that talk about applying for grants and putting in for grants. It's hard. But what I found out I'm in a empowering class now with Bunker Labs, which is strictly for military, and this particular class is strictly for women. And I never thought about grants as being non-government, but every big company offers a grant. Wells Fargo, um, Kabuta, International, Kroger's, all of the big companies offer grants, and a lot of them are not as specific and detailed as if you went to grant.gov and had to do the 20-page of your plans at the beginning, in the middle, and in the end, just to find wherever you eat at, where you shop at. Most of the time there are grants. It may be $1,000, it may be 500, but it's money. And it's free money that a lot of times you don't have to pay back. But it's having that paradigm shift to know that you can look in other spaces that's not necessarily government.
Jake has a great comment. He says, we have to question statistics around suicide in farming communities, since there are so many activities and types of equipment on the farm that are potentially lethal. Is it accident or is it intentional? He says, for example, if a farmer knows how to prevent a tractor from flipping over, then they also know how to make the tractor flip.
Of course.
And I think we've been seeing that a lot in our QPR where, back in the day when we didn't do as much investigating, a lot of those farm accidents were actually intentional. What are your thoughts?
It is so true. And until we bring awareness to it, it will continue to be listed as an accident. And if it's listed like that, how do you get support to the families? Because they've been in the trenches. They know that the books are up. If you follow the money trail, it will tell you a lot. How in debt they are, how bad off the family is the farm getting ready to be auctioned, and this suicide or accident may have saved the farm in insurance money. But again, being able to talk with people and be open about wellness, what that looks like. Because again, there are so many dangerous pieces of equipment on a farm, and not necessarily equipment. Look at the grain bins. You could fall in there. The ponds, the retention ponds, all of those things.
Jake has an FYI for everybody. He says, in many states, the Cooperative Extension Service at the State Land Grant University provides agricultural business programs, including all aspects of business planning. I did not know that. So that's a great resource to put in there. That's all the comments and questions. So if there's something that you missed that you want to tell us, feel free to go ahead and do that now.
Mental wellness is everybody's job. If it feels off, most of the time it's off. If you think about it later, it's not a crime to go back and check on someone, because those things matter. It makes a difference. Oh, she called and she checked on me. Wow. Somebody really did hear what I said and how that matters and what matters. And when we start saying to people what matters to you instead of what's the matter with you, it will change how people respond to us and mental wellness. And when we say it and continue to say it, that mental wellness is a choice, that farming is stressful. And until we make it okay to find your outlet, um, we'll continue to have the problems that we have.
That's awesome. Heather put another link in the chat for anybody who wants to go look at it for a resource. She says nycamh.org provides rollover protective systems through a rebate program, and that's a huge safety concern. It is, because our farmers don't wear seatbelts, right? If there's a seatbelt. I mean, some machinery is old enough that there are no seatbelts, and I used to have one of those. But my guys, as much as I do this, most of the time they do not put their seatbelt on unless I'm behind them and we're on the highway. But out in the field, it hardly ever gets put on. And then, oh, good, Connie, thank you for putting all of that. So Connie just put a plethora of resources in the chat. And then also, can you put maybe either your email address, I guess. It's probably on your Hunter Family Farm, but in case they just want to copy and paste that really quick. So Dr. Haskins from AgriSafe says some corners are elected positions with the only requirement of a high school diploma. So when I say a range of preparation, it's from a high school diploma to MD. Wow, I didn't realize it was like that vast.
Again, we've got to make sure that the lowest level starts to understand the stresses. The city of Atlanta changed their policy that when they get a call starting to talk about somebody having a mental health episode, they bring a social worker with them or a trained clinician to answer the call. And if we start talking about that in that space, a lot of police departments have chaplains that will ride along that can talk and help people with handling all of that. And when we talk about elected officials, who makes them have a job? We do. So if they're not doing what needs to be done, then guess what? Vote with your feet. Go in there, make it happen, change the dynamics of what you see in your space.
Meg put another resource in there that the USDA also has an agreement with SCORE, and SCORE provides business mentorship for farmers and ranchers, which, you know, we all know that some farmers are phenomenal farmers, but they're terrible business people. So that's great.
And if one doesn't fit, you don't have to keep them. You can keep finding and looking for someone to work with you until you find the fit. And don't be afraid to fire them. If it doesn't work, it just does not work. And that is the name of the game. It's your choice.
Awesome. All right. So we will send out all those resources that Connie put in the chat to you in the email. And kind of the whole time I was sitting here thinking, like, every time a second speaker isn't able to make it, it's almost like it's fate, because look how this went. Like, I don't know if people like you understand how interesting you are, but you're very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying, I'm out there doing, but at the end of the day, I see the need. There will always be a need. And we have to start somewhere. I've got to be in the trenches to change the trenches. You can't be about it if you're standing on the outside. I'm knee deep in it. I've been rejected by the farmers, but I still come back and plant the seed because somebody will remember me.
Absolutely. So everybody's saying thank you. You're fabulous. Great respect. So we really appreciate Nisha suggesting you, because I was not on that webinar, and without her referral, I would not have known about you, and you've done so well today in helping our audience with all this information. So All right, guys, thank you. Look for in a day or two, we'll go ahead and send out that bulk email with the video to the YouTube link and then all the resources. And then we are going to start making the YouTube meeting links public so that you can find them more easily and not just get them in the email. So we would love for you to forward those on to the rest of your organizations, your colleagues, and just get the word out there, because all of these programs and presenters that we have, part of what we want to do is help promote them so that we can collaborate together. So remember, we're always working towards the same goal. So why don't we work together? Right? Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And we look for you in December.
Thank you all.
I'm going to stop recording.